How's it going, everyone? My name is fallinghurts, and I'm here with you for yet another review. Today we'll be looking at Undetected, and one thing that was not undetected, or will not be undetected in this video, is that I have a slight cold, so my voice sounds a little different. So if you hear it, tell me to fuck off in the comments or something. I don't really give a shit, but actually don't do that, unless you want to. Just stay for the review and let me see what you think, because this game's really cool, and I did want to talk about it and kind of level some criticism that I felt was necessary to say, especially considering the fact that this developer, Antonio Freire, I'm not really sure, I apologize, I follow you on Twitter, is developing a new stealth action game, more of a third person rather than top down as this one is, that I'll get into in just a moment, and I'm really excited for that one too, and he's been posting updates on Twitter. Follow him there, I'll post a link. But regardless, the game comes from him and is being published on PC by Digerati, and it just released September 30th, 2022, for a price of $14.99. And for a time-to-money ratio, I've spent about 3 hours in the game, I've completed the campaign, and I've gotten 9 out of 11 achievements by playing naturally. Now, of course, that will go up as I try to go back for more footage, do things more efficiently, see how quickly I can beat the game, but for right now, that's where we're at. So let it be known that for $15, you're going to be getting about 3 to 4 hours depending on how you play. So if that is not up to you, that should be your first cue right there. Now, jumping into what exactly the game is, Undetected is very much akin to the old stealth games from the PS1, I believe, or PS2 generation, where it's kind of got the top-down approach. You also get some first-person viewpoints in this game when you choose to, but it's more of a tool rather than a way to play. Looking at the main tagline for the game, it reads as this: stealth your way through the shadows and uncover a corporate conspiracy. Become a cyber-augmented agent in this gameplay-focused stealth game that brings classic sneaking to the modern era. And I gotta say, as a brief, synopsis, as a game made in Unreal Engine, but the old type of visual style with a little bit of charm throughout, I've gotta say that it succeeds in everything it's focusing on in this little tagline. So at face value, this game is exactly what you want. Now, I do have some minor gripes with the way some things are handled, and I'll get into those in just a moment. But for right now, at the very base level, know that I really enjoyed this game. Now, with all that out of the way, I'd like to begin with the story and kind of the lore setup for the game. The actual plot isn't presented in a way that I am really too fond of. Visually, I like the comic book panels that cap off each of the different segments of the game, but overall, I found the events of the actual story a bit dull, and it, to me, felt more like a vessel for the gameplay, which in some ways is a good thing, and it's nice that the story kind of steps aside for what is key here and what a lot of people are coming here for, and that is the gameplay. And while I am pretty negative on the overall plot of the game, I am, however, pretty happy with the world building and the background. Now, I am kind of down on the actual plot and events of the story in the game. However, the world building and background bring so much more to the table that it's almost forgivable. From alternate future political intrigue to dystopian megacorporations running the government, there's a lot to like in the intel briefings that you unlock as you progress through the game. Though what many stealth fans may cling onto, and it's kind of a great segue into the gameplay, is that the main targets or bosses throughout the game are a team of cybernetically enhanced individuals, similarly to Foxhound from Metal Gear, and they all share a pretty similar naming scheme along with their abilities. Though instead of having animals, we more have like body parts and things like that. For instance, we have the nose, the mind, the body, the lead, and of course the eye. The eye, or Khan, is actually us as the protagonist, who rebelled against the evil SEMA Corp, I think that's how you pronounce it, but honestly, as for the, kind of juicy drama around that, I'll let this game speak for itself as far as that goes, but really all you need to know for a story standpoint is that you play as the eye, and with that being said, I suppose we can easily hop over to the gameplay now. As Khan, we're a stealth operative with, you guessed it, a cybernetically enhanced eye that specializes in non-lethal takedowns. So therefore, no one we take out throughout the course of this game actually stays dead, except for, of course, the bosses. With that being said, I love how methodical this game allows you to be, with a myriad of different ammo types for the handgun, or even the different decoys and explosives that you have at your disposal. Though I will say that these items only feel absolutely necessary at the hardest difficulty. The fastest way through an area is honestly through the enemies, and quick players can easily roll into enemies for an instant takedown, which is really unfortunate for the gameplay. There is a punch button, which I do really appreciate, the ability to sneak up behind someone and just punch them out, but unfortunately that's all moot considering the fact that you can just roll into anyone and take them out really quickly. And smart players will figure out very quickly that you can very easily trivialize a lot of the stealth in this game just by that. Now, there are some points where enemy placement and large open areas kind of negate this, and I would have liked to see that explored just a little bit further. Ultimately, the only thing that ever stands to combat this is that at higher difficulties, you seemingly are detected a little bit easier, and it's just harder and more forgiving when it comes to healing and things like that. Now, the other main tool of the player is actually the environment. You heard me kind of mention it there a bit, but whether it be the tall grass or a metallic wall, there's always something to help you out. One thing you will want to look out for are things like puddles of water that leave footprints or heavier metal floors that make sounds that can cause enemies to kind of investigate the area. All of these things are really cool little details that it would have felt like a much lesser game without these aspects, so I really enjoy them being here. The main issue when it comes to the environment is more of an actual visual issue and the way it kind of translates to the player. Light in Undetected is super important. Being in the shadows allows you to travel completely unseen, or undetected if you will, and this works really well until you get inside the complex towards the second half of the game. In the jungle, the light and dark and like the lamppost made it super noticeable, and it reads really easily when you're actually in or out of the light. But as you get into the complex, there are certain environments that it makes it really hard to parse whether you're actually in the light or not, making it super unreliable as far as stealth is concerned. Now, there are other aspects that are brought in during the complex, considering there's things like cameras that are shown up and drones and different things like that. But overall, I felt the lack of light being a common tool was something that was pretty unfortunate towards the last half of the game. Minor gripes aside from me, I think the gameplay of Undetected is actually pretty great. The little goals that we can self-impose on ourselves, like making it through without being seen, or beating the game really quick, really add a lot to what there is. Though at the core experience, to me, I really just didn't feel like the game was long enough. And with that being said, I think 3 hours to kind of complete most of the game, maybe 5 hours for completion if you really want to go through again, is a bit short considering how much quality actually is here. And quality shows really heavily with the aforementioned boss fights that I kind of alluded to earlier, as each one of them has their own kind of gimmick, like using a stink bomb on yourself to throw off the overly stimulated sniffer sniper of the nose for the first boss fight. Try saying that 3 times fast, and once you actually get it, the game's probably already over. Now, I do wish there was a little more puzzle to some of these boss fights. Each gimmick was definitely unique, but it was pretty easy to figure it out. As for the regular enemies of the game, they're fine. Pretty much your common soldier or drone, and they're pretty deadly if you let them get up to you or if you have a line of sight with them. But overall, I do feel these 2 type of common enemies are a little overused. I would have liked to have seen at least one more variety. Maybe someone who was immune to our rolls or something like that, a little bit heavier of an enemy. But moving on from the gameplay though, I'd really like to close out with the audio and the visuals. Here I'm pretty happy with just a few more minor nitpicks. And the visuals from the comic panels to the game textures and the lighting are all really nice. As I previously mentioned, there are some instances where certain light surfaces don't translate as well, and I also would have loved to see some parity between cutscene and gameplay, meaning less of the comic book style if they're going to have more in-engine stuff, but I can honestly see budgetarily why that wasn't the focus here, and I'm honestly fine with that. Just something I would have liked to see a little more consistency with. The actual art style is clearly meant to replicate old stealth games, and it does a damn good job doing so, especially considering it's in modern hardware and resolution constraints, meaning that it doesn't look super goofy being in HD, as opposed to back then on like a CRT. Oh, and the game runs absolutely amazing on the Steam Deck. This is where I did my full playthrough, by the way, and that was super fun. You asked me the mouse and keyboard controls, I couldn't tell you. You know, honestly, if my gameplay looks bad during this video, it's because I'm probably playing on mouse and keyboard and I just was too lazy to plug in a controller. Now, the sound design of Undetected is when it gets really nutty. Different sound levels when walking on different surfaces like floor, dirt, or even water are all obviously varied, but also neatly shown. It's honestly just so cool, and it's a really great tool to see just how much noise you're making for the enemies around you. Otherwise, the dialogue of the game is fine, the voice delivery is fine during the cutscenes, but what really stands out to me is when you kind of stand around in a certain area, and the guards just start saying funny stuff. It really reminded me of the old Warcraft 3 days. If you clicked on someone so many times, they'd start saying lines from like, "There is no Banshee, only Zul," or "They came from behind," or different things like that. It's all really funny, and here it's just as funny. Now, the music, on the other hand, was the one bit where I felt it was a little on the flip side. It was a little less memorable because I really did feel like it was trying, just like the visuals, to invoke the classics. And that's where it really failed to even be its own thing. So to me, it was probably serviceable in the moment, but I don't remember it. You know, I vaguely kind of maybe know what the alert sound effect was like, but that's about it. But really, that's my thoughts. Overall, I think that Undetected is a fun game that doesn't last as long as it deserves. Much like me on my first, second, and even third dates. The story, while pretty bland in its execution, is so charming, and in the background, it works pretty well as a proper vehicle for the engrossing gameplay that demands to be played on a higher difficulty. Throw in visuals that clearly invoke nostalgia for many, and pretty well detailed audio, and to me, you've got a pretty clear value proposition for many stealth fans. In the end, I believe Undetected is pretty much worth the price, and at the max of probably about 5 hours for a 100% if you don't get it all in your first playthrough, and being $15 US, that's only about $3 an hour, and honestly, that's a pretty good deal for stealth fans, especially those who don't have access to $2 prostitutes. And I know what you may be thinking, hey, you had issues with the game, why are you not airing them out or saying, hey, get the game for a reduced price? Well, here's my thoughts. If you're into stealth games and you're interested in this game, it's definitely worth playing, and especially paying attention to the developer. To me, my issues with the game are things that I'd like to see hammered out in the next game by Antonio, especially if it's a shared world and universe. That would be really cool. Once again, follow him, as it seems to be a more modern stealth game with kind of third-person rather than top-down views. And you'll have to let me know if you want to see a video on that as well. Regardless, I'll have his Twitter and I believe YouTube linked down below. But really, that's it for me, guys. My name is fallinghurts. Let me know what you think of this video. It's a really fun game to play, if a little short. Definitely a great Steam Deck game. If for nothing else you want a great game to play on the go, then maybe do pick it up on sale if stealth isn't really your thing. But hey, what do I know? That's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.